I've recently started using an AI tool called Notebook LM that can take my podcasts and remake them as short videos. I have been astonished by the quality of what it generates, so I'm going to start posting them here. Let me know what you think. You can watch the videos on Spotify or YouTube, but even if you can't see the graphics, the audio is quite amazing. Here is the first one I want to share with you. It is based on episode 5 from the original series, and the AI redo just took my breath away.
Okay, so this comes from a podcast series called The Bible and Homosexuality, an LGBTQ Positive View by Elton Sherwin. We're summarizing an episode titled, What Did Jesus Say About Sexual and Gender Minorities? And the answer, as Sherwin suggests, well, it might have been hiding in plain sight for the last 2,000 years.
But before we even get into the theology, I want to start with why this conversation matters so much. This is a real review that was left for the podcast we're talking about today. It says, "Your podcasts helped me stop my suicidal thoughts. You saved my life." It's just a gut punch, right? It really shows that for so many people, this is not some abstract debate. It's truly a matter of life and death.
You know, for the longest time, the Christian conversation around this topic has really fixated on just a handful of Old Testament verses. People call them the clobber verses, and they're often used to condemn gay people. Now, the author of our source material, he actually started out by trying to refute those specific verses, but that whole process led him to ask a much deeper question. Forget all that for a second. What did Jesus himself actually have to say about it? And that one question, well, it changed everything for him. He went from just trying to play defense, neutralizing the negative verses, to actively searching for a proactive, affirming message from Jesus about sexual and gender minorities. He eventually came to believe that the Bible doesn't just not condemn them, but that it actually suggests they were specifically created and are uniquely blessed by God. So this brings us to a really fascinating puzzle in the book of Matthew. It's a passage that Jesus introduces in a way he never ever does anywhere else in the Bible. It's like he's putting up a giant flashing neon sign that says, "Hey, pay attention, this is really important, and by the way, not everybody's going to get it."
This is the line. This is how he opens. Just stop and think about that for a second. Out of all the parables, all the sermons, all the teachings he ever gave, this is the only time he kicks it off with a warning like this. Not everyone can receive this. He's basically telling his audience that what's coming next requires a very special kind of understanding.
And here it is. This is the teaching he sets up so carefully. Jesus says, "For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven." And then, just to make sure we get the point, he closes by repeating that same challenge. Let the one who is able to receive this, receive it.
So, yeah, the big question is, what on earth is he talking about? Who are these eunuchs? And why is this one specific teaching wrapped in so much mystery and importance? Well, according to our source, the answer is all about the language.
The whole key to cracking this puzzle is understanding what that word eunuch actually meant back then. Not what it means to us today, but what it meant in the first century world. And it turns out its meaning was way, way broader than we usually think.
And here is the absolute crucial point. In antiquity, eunuch was basically a catch-all term. It was used for any man who just didn't fit the standard mold of getting married to a woman and having kids. This went far, far beyond the idea of just physical castration.
I mean, the term covered a huge range of people. It could be a high-ranking official in the court, a guy who was seen as effeminate, someone who just wasn't attracted to women, or even someone who simply chose to be celibate. It was this big umbrella for any man who stood apart from what was considered the procreative norm.
Okay, and this is the absolute game changer from the source material. You see, neither ancient Hebrew nor Greek had a specific word for homosexual. It just wasn't a concept they had. So what word would you use for someone who didn't fit the sexual norm? You'd use eunuch. The author argues that a much more accurate translation of that word in this context isn't eunuch at all, but rather sexually different.
Now, just look at this side by side. The common translation we all know says, "For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth." But when you swap in that proposed translation, it becomes, "For there are those who have been sexually different from birth." All of a sudden, the meaning is radically different and feels a lot more relevant to our world today.
And the implication of that is just profound. According to this interpretation, Jesus is stating crystal clear that some people are born this way.
It's not a choice, it's not a defect or a moral failing. It is an intentional part of God's creation. They are different from birth because that is exactly how God made them.
All right, so looking at this passage through this completely new lens, the source material leaves us with a final challenge. It's kind of like a homework assignment, inviting us to take this interpretation and really apply it for ourselves.
So, let's quickly recap those three categories Jesus laid out, but let's use our new translation. First, there are those who are sexually different from birth. Second, those made so by others, which, back then could mean castration, but you could also interpret it more broadly today. And third, those who choose this path for the sake of the kingdom of heaven.
And that really brings us to the final question to chew on. Who is Jesus talking about today? If we read eunuch as sexually different, how could these three ancient categories map onto the incredibly diverse experiences within the modern LGBTQIA+ community? It's a message that might have been hidden for 2,000 years, just waiting for those who are able to receive.
I'm Elton Sherwin. Stay safe, be brave, and God bless.